Hey y'all, what is up? Welcome to episode 50 of Stock Talk with Josh and Luke.
Yep.
Luke, how you doing today?
Fine. You guys?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Do y'all
Fantastic,
stare at the
fabulous.
camera too, or I'm just kidding.
I do a little bit of everything. I look at you sometimes, also look at the people who's also watching us on YouTube,
I like it.
listening to us on Spotify, Apple. Thank you all for tuning in for episode 50. So, Nico, how you doing?
Pretty good. Happy to be here.
Oh, you're just happy to be here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you do have a guest. You do see that?
What's going on, sir?
I noticed him.
Yeah.
So, Luke,
Yes.
how you doing?
I'm fine. How are you guys? Happy Sunday.
Good. I really don't know who you are, so you got to give me some background of who the man Luke is.
Who am I? That's a great question. So my name is Luke Lareau. I'm a
Round of applause for Luke, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm a mortgage advisor and lender. That's professionally. I work in Crown Point. I live in Munster. I met Nico at a
Y'all were drinking somewhere, huh?
Yeah, we're drinking
Region Ale.
somewhere. Yeah, Region
Okay.
Ale. So we had a good conversation there. We got to talk politics a little bit. We got to talk finance, work, entrepreneurship, all that stuff. So I actually went to Purdue. I got a bachelor's there in entrepreneurship myself, minor in communication, and I've always had a heart and a desire to learn more about finance, investment, stocks, all that fun stuff. So growing up, I had family. I heard the static. Did you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
So, no. So growing up, my parents were big in work ethic and savings, but they weren't necessarily big into investments. They weren't
Yeah.
really knowledgeable about that. They didn't understand it. And so it probably wasn't until I was 22 or 23 where I ended up meeting a financial advisor who kind of opened my eyes to the investment side of the world. And so at that point, that's when I just started
Oh my
researching.
God, that's like me and you.
No, it's not.
Well,
Kind
yeah.
of.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, because how old are you guys?
I started investing when I was 17.
But I was 22 when I met you. 21,
Okay,
20
I
years something.
wasn't a financial advisor.
You kind of are.
No, I'm not.
I mean, financial educator.
Great.
At that
financial
time,
educator.
not. I don't think so. At that time,
At what? When you're 17?
no,
Probably
I was
not. I mean, you're
17.
just researching things. So
Yeah.
At 21, you probably are. But who cares? Who cares about us? Let's go
No,
back.
I
No,
thought-
I
I
like it. I like it.
Maybe I thought I was at 21, and then I realized I'm not. But now I am, though. The static is out of control.
I think every year when you get older, you just realize, oh, I wasn't as knowledgeable
Yeah,
as I once thought I
exactly.
was.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, I think that's
so.
part of
I'll
growing
probably have
Yeah.
another revelation like 2 years from now.
I think we do it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Okay. Anyways, continue your story.
So about me. So was always good work ethic, knew about savings, didn't really understand much about our fiat currency, how our economy works, how our economic structure is. And I got introduced to a financial advisor. He kind of opened up my eyes to that side of the world. And so I was still doing my own thing, working different jobs out of college. And then it wasn't until probably a couple years ago I ended up interviewing with a financial advising firm. Not going to give the name, but one of the things that they had told me was, hey, unless the client that you're talking to has at least $100,000 or more in liquid assets, they told me not to waste my time on the clients. And so that was a pivotal point for me because in my mind, okay, my family, friends, everybody that I know, you're telling me my time is not worth it with them because they might not have those assets. And so I'm big into, yes, how can we find ways for those who have money to help them make more money? But my heart's also in how can we educate people so that they're exposed to ideas and philosophies that maybe they've never been exposed to before. So that's one of my favorite parts of what I do professionally is because then those who go through the home buying process, I get to educate them through that and also kind of plant seeds from an investment side. And so that's what I do professionally. But yeah.
What do you think is one common question someone who's looking for a house you usually ask you?
Ask me.
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends. Each person's different right now. Right now, it's based on interest rates. So, that's always the first question is what are rates at? So that's
What are rates?
I mean, it depends. There's a lot of factors that go into it.
I
But
know the federal rate is 5%, right?
So on the mortgage side, they're right around high sixes, low sevens.
Okay.
So I don't know if you guys knew, but typically and historically, mortgage rates usually follow inflation. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah.
So if you go back to, I think it was the 1970s, end of 1970s, so inflation was up to 17, 18%. So mortgage rates then ultimately follow that because then mortgage rates were at 16, 17% themselves. I don't know if your parents ever talked about that, but they were back in their day, their bank rates were super high.
Yeah.
Their mortgage rates were super high. So with that being said, typically mortgage rates follow, they lag inflation. So a lot of people just don't realize that. So when they see inflation go up, or now that we're seeing inflation start to trend down, people are concerned that these interest rates on the mortgage side is going to last forever. But ultimately, if you see historically how they lag inflation, if we can see that inflation is starting to trend downwards, that means we can also assume then that mortgage rates are starting to trend downwards.
So they don't follow the interest rates?
People always assume that mortgage rates strictly and simply only follow the Fed rate, but there's
if the Fed
a ton of other factors. Obviously, like it has an influence on it, but it's not the main underlying indicator and factor that causes mortgage rates to.
Okay, so what will happen if the Fed rate remains the same, but inflation goes down?
So it's going to have an influence on it, but inflation will also cause typically mortgage rates to follow suit.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of other like economic factors that influence it, but that's a huge indicator.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so in your opinion, the past, what was that, last year, 2 years when the housing market kind of blew up, things of that nature, what do you see how it is going, like compared to what it was then to what it is now? Like, do you see it going down like a little bit? Or is it still like those high numbers that was what it was like a year or two ago?
What do you mean going down? What's going down?
Like overall, the cost of housing, things like that.
Gotcha. So that's difficult to answer because not difficult to answer, but there's pockets. So if you look at the COVID era, basically borrowing money was free. So anybody that was looking to borrow money, whether it was from a business side, whether it was from a mortgage side, like it was basically like government's just saying, hey, take whatever money you want, you can have it. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, you put a huge amount of money into the system, and so that's ultimately how supply and demand works. You had a large supply of money coming in, but then materials, labor, etc., wasn't meeting the flow of money. So ultimately, if productivity isn't meeting that, then you're going to have huge amounts of inflation. So that's why we saw such a high increase. But because the way fiat currency, like you're not going to all of a sudden see like a deflation from where we're at, because ultimately, like the way our fiat currency is, the value keeps going down, but then assets, for the most part, should, as long as inflation's somewhat stable, go up, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that was different then. Now we're in more of a restrictive policy. And so because of that, you're starting to see then different parts of the country, you're having the value of homes are going down. Mm-hmm. So the best way I can explain that is it's pocket. Like there's different pockets to where you're going to see some appreciation decrease of home values, but then in other areas you're going to see it, say, either stagnant or increasing. Best example is this. The West Coast is seeing a ton of, like, the value of the house is decreasing 5, 10, 15, 20%. Like that's normal in the West Coast. So a lot of loan officers and mortgage advisors out there are struggling because it's very difficult for people to be wanting to buy a house because ultimately all the value's going down and our people are afraid to, et cetera. So you're seeing an inflow of people from California, though, because of different various factors, moving to Arizona. The reason why I say that, because ultimately where we are at in Northwest Indiana, we are also insulated from the amount of people from Illinois moving over to Indiana. Mm-hmm. So because of that, we aren't here feeling the effects that maybe somebody on the West Coast is feeling, simply because we are having an influx of people moving from Illinois over here to Indiana.
Yes.
So those obviously have factors then based on the value of homes. So you might have, yes, interest rates are higher, but people who are moving over from Illinois, let's say, these aren't actually 100% factual, but like a house, let's say, is $300,000. Somebody in Illinois might be paying $12,000 in taxes. Somebody in Indiana might be paying $3,500 to $4,500, which means that person in Illinois is paying $600 to $700 more per month for taxes alone. Mm-hmm. In their mind, gosh, interest rates are still going up. We still have all these taxes, at least, if you're looking back 6, 12 months ago. So now you're having all these different people moving here. Like, hey, I can justify a higher payment because I'm paying less in taxes. That's causing our housing here, the values to continue to at least stay stagnant or go up with the different trends that's happening on the inflation side and also on the mortgage rate side.
So like the areas where they have a mass amount of people moving into those areas, that's where there's going to be more appreciation at. Like 100%. How you said Arizona or Florida maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately how it works. So if people are leaving from an area, who's buying the homes, right? So it's like a business. If you two are running a business, you have a product that people are buying, but you don't have a product that people are buying. Which product might be worth more money, or which brand or business is going to be worth more money?
The one that people are buying.
The one that people are buying. Yeah. So same thing with real estate. Depending on what people are buying or where they're buying, that's where you're going to see an appreciation of value.
Mm-hmm. You don't think what about the factor of like how fancy or expensive the house is?
What about it?
Like, is that going to have how is that factor as far as appreciating or depreciating assets?
Fancy of a house?
That's kind of personal, like more so opinionated.
Like,
from
let's say
personal
like
interest.
a basic house. It doesn't have a bunch of crazy stuff in it. That's maybe $300,000 versus like a $1.5 million house. The $1.5 million house should depreciate more, right?
When you say depreciate more, so 4% on 100,000.
I mean percentage-wise.
No. What I'm saying is like 4% on 100,000 is $4,000, right? Maybe my math's wrong, but 4% on $1 million is $40,000. So that percent is going to mean that there's going to be a larger decrease in value on the higher value home simply because of.
Well, I don't mean dollar amount. I mean, which is one going to fall 10% and one's going to fall 20%?
That's tough to answer.
Okay.
I mean, kind of the same thing. So if you look at, is there a market for the $1 million house compared to is there a market for the $300,000 house? If there's less people buying that $1 million house, then yes, like those factors then could.
Right.
It's the same thing with like the pockets I was mentioning earlier. If Northwest Indiana is seeing a higher inflow of people coming in, then the values are going to be better compared to Illinois.
And it also depends on the area too.
There's
a bunch
so
of
many
factors,
factors.
yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Good questions.
Okay, so when did you start investing in stocks?
So that should have been about 2017. It's about 6 years ago.
And what first
What was your first stock? that you got
caught your interest? Or
I think it was Visa.
oh, okay, that's a
Yeah,
good
I
one.
think it was Visa. And when I was younger, I was big into like Call of Duty, Blizzard stuff. So I
Oh, yeah.
bought Activision.
Okay.
And so that was, I think, my second stock I bought. And that was before I knew of ETFs, mutual funds, et cetera. So, I mean, we're talking a couple $100. So.
Did you transition into the majority of it into ETFs and index funds?
It's split, but
Oh,
I would say
split, okay.
majority probably is still towards ETFs.
Okay.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, like if most of my money is going into larger size businesses with larger market caps, instead of me having to worry about them, I also put into an ETF, which will adjust every quarter.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
kinda hear
saying with that?
I kind of hear that too because like dealing with stocks is a little bit more like it takes more of a toll on the average person.
It's time consuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what each person wants. Most people, I mean, half our country doesn't even invest. So
Yeah,
to
I
expect
know.
that people are going to become stock pickers and be successful at it, I think the biggest thing for us is how do we educate people to at least begin investing?
Just get into the ETFs or the index funds.
Yeah, so I
Anyone
mean,
can do that.
if I were somebody who just, again, typically if I meet somebody for the first time, I'm not going to suggest handpicking a stock. I'd say, hey,
right.
go invest in the S&P 500 index.
Yeah.
It adjusts every quarter based on market value. So again, like if you look back 30 years, Nokia might have been number one in VOO, right?
Yeah.
But now fast forward 30 years, it's not even part of that. But
Yeah.
Apple is. So I couldn't have necessarily chosen that, but because of it, the way it just automatically adjusts every quarter and based on the different,
I like that thinking.
right?
And one of the questions I asked on our last podcast was, how easy is it to beat the indexes? Because there's a lot of evidence that shows that the odds are in a big way really against you when it comes to trying to beat the indexes by stock picking. So it is something really hard that I think very few people can do. But I still do it because I think that I hope one day that I can
That's funny.
consistently show that I can beat the S&P. Because there's been years when I've beat it and there's been years where I haven't beat it. So, there hasn't been enough data yet, but
Well, I guess it depends on the years. I mean, if you bought tech funds from 2020 to 2021, I mean, you're beating
Yeah.
any standard index. Things were up 60, 70%. You know what I mean? So, like, it depends on what, out of the data that you have, what window of data are you looking out of to determine.
But I think tech stocks have probably, over the last 20 years, since tech started becoming big, they probably have outperformed, most of the other
Yeah, I mean, if you look
sectors.
at, like, the 10-year average return for, like, VGT, which is tech-based, it's
Okay.
another Vanguard fund, compared to VOO, I think the average return is higher than a VOO.
I wonder what the VGT
I think it was like,
annual, the average
I think the
annual.
average annual was like 15%, 16%.
So that's
think
better than
VO
the 9 or 10% you're going
Correct.
to get.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean you're not going to have volatility.
Yeah.
You're going to have much more volatility with the tech side of things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. What do you guys think?
You want to go first or me?
Well, I'm a stock picker. I mean, I think that if anything, I like to put like a quarter of my account, maybe my goal, I would say, is to get maybe a quarter of my account in an index fund, and then, whatever, 75% in stock picking. But again, this is going to determine on if can I beat the indexes the next couple of years. So we'll see. I've beat it the last 5 years. We'll see if I can do it the next 5 years.
So what did you focus on to beat the indexes?
I bought this company called Tesla back in the day, and that
Never heard of them. I'm just
they're
kidding.
they're not very popular, but I bought them back in the day, and that's what transformed my portfolio. So I'm probably not going to have another 2,000% gainer in the next 5 years.
So what percent of your portfolio would you say is in Tesla?
Right now it's 35%.
That's pretty heavy.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. See, so what about you, Josh?
I feel like there's a Yoda line about this, but I think everything needs to be about balance. Messing with different type of stocks. Maybe not have 35% Tesla, but maybe 15% one company, 15%
No,
another.
but would you do primarily index funds or
I think
not
a good.
index?
I say 60-40.
60 in index?
No.
Oh, 60 in
flip it.
stock picking?
Mhm.
Okay. That's good.
Really?
Yeah. But I feel like we're more kind of like on the younger side,
Yeah.
We don't have any responsibilities. So we
Yeah.
can have like time like, oh, we mess up something. It's still all right because it's just us that we got to deal with.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, I feel like when we're younger, we can take more of those risks. I forgot.
Yeah.
I heard some saying the other day. It said those that have less money typically make more risks to try and make more quicker.
Of course.
But those
Yeah.
who have a lot can afford to not be as risky.
Of course.
I mean, if you have $1 million, 4.5% is not too shabby. If you have $1,000, like if you're only making 4.5%, you're
Yeah.
not talking too much money every day.
Yeah. Right.
So, and then based on that, you're going to make more risky investments,
Yeah. That's exactly
which some
right.
might prove profitable, like with your Tesla choices. I mean, depending on when you purchased it. I mean, if you purchased it
Yeah.
at the high, then you're not so profitable.
No,
But
right.
and that's like where the concern is, though. People will get, if you're buying it, again, if you're not experienced with it and you see a stock price going up, what indicators are you looking at? Are you looking at any indicators? Are you going to get that high of, oh, everybody's making money? How do I hop on the train and make money too? But in the meantime, you're buying at the high when you have seasoned investors who've been doing this for decades who are going to then take advantage of that. Not advantage of it, but they know like, hey, this is at an all-time high and there's no financials stating, hey, this is supported.
Yeah.
Then they're going to be ultimately selling when everybody else trying to pick. We're just better off buying an index fund.
And I feel like even for those very experienced investors that are looking into all these little details and fundamentals, there's some pieces of the puzzle that are so unpredictable that sometimes stocks are going to do things that even if you study it, they're going to do something out of the ordinary,
Especially on the tech side.
Yeah, especially on the tech side with stuff like Amazon or one of the things I see is I don't understand how you can justify certain stocks that will trade at 60 times earnings when other stocks they'll say most stocks will trade at like let's say 20, right? 20 or 25 times earnings. So they might say, okay, if it's 20 or 25, then I can see how that's justified. But stuff like Amazon, that's been trading at 50, 60 times earnings for over a decade. So it's hard to see how that's justifiable. But I mean,
yeah, it's like with tech, tech might be like the only sector like
people do justify it.
yeah,
Not that it's like, again, financially, it's based off of what their future growth is going to be.
right.
If you look at more of like a REIT, they're looking at what are our financials and how do you get what's your P&E based on that, and that's going to be more realistic. If you see a REIT, real estate investment trust, trading at what Tesla was, which is 1,000, I mean it's unlikely because it's more of a value compared to a growth stock.
And I think the thing is like it's so much up to the market to determine what PE do they want to put on the stock, right? So it's like a lot of stuff is out of your control.
I mean, we're retail investors, so yeah,
But
a lot
like,
of it is.
that is
but
true.
like I mean like if Tesla so Tesla has been trading at huge numbers, PEs of 100, 200, stuff like that. If it really wanted, investors can bring that down to like a 25 PE ratio.
Well, I guess it depends on
How much they're growing.
Well, not only that, but I mean, how many are retail investors? How many are institutional investors?
Why does that matter?
Because it's not a matter of like quantity of investors; it's a matter of quantity invested.
Yeah, yeah.
So if there's 1,000 of us, and which each only have $1,000 compared to Elon Musk, who's got billions of dollars worth of stock,
You're saying
that's going to have a big influx because it's PE is based off of what people are buying compared to like its intrinsic value. So if you have like a stock could go as high as they want. Ultimately, if enough people believe
Like
that it's worth
GameStop.
that much,
Let's say a GameStop.
yeah, same. That's exactly right. So
Right.
like if you have one of those scenarios, and yeah, like the stock is quote unquote worth what I guess the market claims it's worth. Does it mean it's actually worth that much?
No. See what I mean? That's what I mean.
Pick one house in Northwest Indiana. If out of nowhere now, it's just a standard house that typically is worth $250,000. If 1,000 people decide that this house is now worth more than that, what's going to happen to the value of the house? It's now going to be worth $1 million. But all financials say if you look at other comparables, meaning other comparable properties, or in the stock case, other comparable businesses, reality should say no. If you look at these other businesses, past performance, this house or this stock should only be worth X amount. What do you guys think?
There's weird things in there though. I think there are certain stocks like Verizon, AT&T, Walgreens. You would think, okay, these are profitable corporations, not very risky companies. They trade at super low multiples of 7 times earnings, 6 times earnings, and you would think that's a great opportunity to invest, but really, I don't think it is. I think it's a trap. I think you
said a trap.
It's a trap. Yeah, it's a trap because it looks like it's a great opportunity, but really, those stocks have horrible free cash flow, and they have bad balance sheets. So you're not.
Yeah, you have to look at those.
Yeah,
like just because something has a high yield doesn't mean it's a good stock to invest in.
Right. But for Walgreens, let's say, you could have looked at that stock the last 5 years and said, okay, this is something I'm going to get in.
Do you still have Walgreens?
I just sold it.
Okay.
And I put that on the list for today. I sold it. That's what I'm saying.
Because like the conversation came from a little bit of like tense anger from. I could feel like
I felt
you get
it.
tensed a little bit.
I'm not like one of those big energy guys, but I felt it.
And I did the same thing with Verizon too. I bought into Verizon, right? You think those companies will be fine, but they can just keep downtrending for literally years and years. So you got to watch out.
Back to the indexes,
right?
Yep.
Index wouldn't do that.
Or focus on other things like make sure they're consistently improving their net income and their free cash flow. That's what I've been looking for, the consistency.
That's what I'm looking for in a girlfriend too.
That's another thing.
That's a good starting point. Yeah, and you can't really. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, what do you say we start knocking out things on our list for today?
You want to go with your list or my list?
Ooh,
they're the same
can we go
list.
back and forth?
Oh, they are?
I added yours onto mine.
Okay. Well,
So,
what's the first thing?
The first thing on the list is advanced auto parts and the car industry and those other, the competitors.
What are you talking about? The store?
Yeah.
What's going on with the store?
Advanced auto parts, they said their earnings are going to be down 40% this year, and the stock is down now to the stock a year or two ago it was $200 and something. Now it's $60. So the stock fell pretty big, and I'm kind of debating on buying it because the P ratio is the lowest it's been in the last 15. This hasn't been this low in 15 years. So I'm considering it, but the business is not as efficiently ran as AutoZone or O'Reilly's.
I'm a big fan of AutoZone.
Yeah, AutoZone has way better margins and everything. So that's why I'm like second guessing it. What do you guys think?
I don't have much. I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't really focused on that sector or those particular businesses in general. Because again, back to my philosophy, I'm not like in my mind. For me, my time is worth more necessarily than trying to handpick one of those stocks. For me, right now.
But you said a fraction of your account is.
It's still handpicked, yes, but it's going to be, for me anyways, it's more of those bigger companies anyways that I know are pretty sustainable.
Yeah.
Oh, so you have Google, Apple.
Yeah, I mean, you have some of the big names that aren't going to be going anywhere most likely. So the Lockheed Martins, you have the Visas, the Google. So, I mean, the Apples. I mean, I know there would have to be some major changes that the whole world would ultimately see for me to then indicate, hey, this stock might be starting to decline.
Yeah.
Compared to some of these other ones that I would feel like I would need to every single day or at least weekly at a minimum be looking at the value of that stock depending on how much I put in.
And see, but that's kind of going back to what I was saying about those Walgreens and Verizon stocks, because you could look at those and say those aren't like they kind of got pretty
Does Advance have like some of those, like when you go to AutoZone, they can check see why your check engine light is on, things like that. Do they have that at Advance?
I don't know, but I think so. But yeah, I mean, certain stocks like that, it's tricky because.
So would you say, I don't know if you know this or not, like your average listeners, do you know, are they more interested in indexes? Are they more interested in?
A lot of them are.
Everybody, comment.
A lot of them
are more in the stocks because they're like more our age.
Got it.
So outside the breakdowns, like more 18 to like 35. So our age bracket. Like I said earlier, we like to take a little bit more risk.
Yeah.
I think because I think the majority of those people, they look at it like sports betting or gambling. They're not using it as like
That's who we are in
long-term.
that sort of era too.
They're not looking at it like long-term wealth building.
Well, do they? Yeah, I mean, many people think it's only for the rich. So growing up, my grandma told me, like, when I first started investing back in 2017, she told me, "Oh, don't get invested in that. Don't put your energy and money into that because that's just for the wealthy." How many people
What does
aren't?
that mean?
Well, it means like we're not knowledgeable enough to make money in that.
Yeah,
But in my
Oh.
mind, that came from a perspective and a mindset, but it also came from somebody who dealt with, post-depression. Like she was 91, 92 before she passed. Like she lived in an era and a time that I didn't.
Yeah.
So she probably saw different things and heard different things about the stock market that I didn't hear.
Mm-hmm.
But the same token, my point of that is like, I
and
think
plus
a
the
lot of people,
information wasn't out there like it was
100%.
now.
I think the other point of that is like a lot of people don't even they see tickers, aka like the symbol of what a stock is or a company is.
I'd be so confused when I was
Right,
like
exactly.
10.
Like people don't know the fundamentals of it, what it
Yeah.
is. Like here's a business. This is the proposed value of a business. Although it's free reign for people to buy and sell when they want, which can influence the stock price.
Mm-hmm.
Based on its financials, that gives us a general idea of what it should actually be worth.
Yeah.
So not to bring housing back into it, but if we know, like if you bought a house today and let's say it's worth $300,000, let's say 08, 09 happened again, would you sell it? Your house?
No.
Why would you not sell it?
Because it's down 50 or 60%, probably.
Okay, and you know that the value should ultimately come back to what it should be worth.
Right.
People need to view, which they haven't, they need to view owning stocks or index funds,
Same way,
whatever,
yeah.
the same way as a house.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the value might go down 20 or 30%, if you know ultimately, like you wouldn't sell your house in that moment, you shouldn't sell your stocks in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you're taking a huge loss and then you're in a very
Yeah, we try
tough
to like,
predicament.
but even with me, I try to like when the stock goes down like 30%, I'm trying to like wait till it breaks even like a little bit, or at least back to even.
What do you mean breaks even? Oh, you're saying
So
for
if
it
you
to
bought
come
a-
back up to break
Yeah.
even. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think housing is different though.
I'm just using that as an example. People,
Yeah.
back to like the education side, people need to know what they're doing because if you see something decrease in value abruptly, your first instinct, because again, based on instincts, is survival. And so most people think, how can I preserve some of this capital that I put out?
But see, I think there's a difference there because I don't think housing is the same as stocks because housing is people are expecting that it to return. How you said like they're expecting it to return to levels where it should be more so than stocks.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, people need somewhere to stay. At the end of the day, yeah.
Like they're more like stocks will fall 90%, right? You're not going to get a bunch of houses falling 90% in
So
value
some stocks, but again, like what era of time are you looking at?
right now.
Okay, so outside like the COVID era,
I don't know, yeah, it's
to
kinda
see a
weird,
stock go down 90%, I mean, you're talking beyond Great Depressionary type perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not normal is my point.
Or even 80%.
That's not normal.
Still kinda high,
Which
but
going
yeah.
back to what we were talking about earlier, that means again with somebody buying a house that should be only worth 250, people were buying a house that should be only worth 250, but we're buying it for $1.5 million. Same thing with the stock market. People were buying stocks that weren't like they had no business buying a stock. I fell prey to one of those things. So like Square, now called Block.
Yeah.
Like that thing was going for almost $300,
Yep.
if not more, a share. So I remember when it started going down, I bought in at $200, thinking, "Gosh, I got a steal."
Right.
But guess what? Now it's worth like $67 a
Yep.
share.
I fell into the same trap.
So that's my
yeah.
point. Like to see something decrease that, like that is not normal.
Yeah.
So people shouldn't like they need to be hesitant to think, "Oh, great, this stock is down 90%." Well, what out of the last 50 years of time, at what perspective of time are you looking at that data to make a judgment and a good decision on where and how you're investing?
But let's say, okay, worst case scenario, let's say the financial crisis of whatever, 2008, how much did those houses fall in value?
I don't remember
I
offhand. Maybe you can look it up.
I
Oh,
want
yeah.
to say it's 50%. I
I
don't,
mean, most people were underwater. So underwater means like they owed more than the house was worth.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, so that was huge. That's why there were so many foreclosures and
I don't think it's over. There's no way it's over 60%. I want to say it's.
I mean, yeah, you could look up what was the average
See, so that's
appreciation of houses during the 08, 09.
that's much
crisis.
less volatile than stocks. That's why. But going back to your point, that's why I think people will sell stocks when they go down, because
It's easier. It's
Well,
easier to do it too.
It is easier. That's one
It
thing.
says 9.5%.
Say it again.
No,
9.5%.
no.
The
No.
house values only went down 9.5%.
No, it was
In
like
the last quarter of 2007, prices fell by a record 9.5% 2008. Wait, to 197 compared to.
yeah, but that's not right.
That sounds funny.
No, that's not, maybe they mean that quarter, but over the course of early
Just a quarter.
right. So
Got
from
it.
early
So maybe probably
2007,
20% it went down,
I think
if
it's
not
even
more.
more than that.
Yeah.
More than that because it's then another 15%.
Got it. Yeah. Because I
Something
remember
like that.
hearing, again, like, because I'm 30. I don't know how you guys are, but
I'm 23.
yeah. So we, again, like, just based on what we've heard before and outside what we can research on the internet, like, I didn't have to live through that as a homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
So when everybody's coming into a market with different perspectives. Like, again, you guys are coming into it with the perspective of, hey, this is what was normal. We saw a huge increase in valuations of these stocks to now 90% decrease. But somebody else has come into the market 30 years ago maybe and saw different things. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
True.
Exactly.
So all these people are viewing things from a different perspective.
So
different
that's why the
angle.
more time you have in the market, the more experienced you are. You have a better gauge of when is a good time to buy and sell. And
Yeah, but then that's why, again, Warren Buffett's buying. He always buys stuff, like waiting. He's a value investor.
Mm-hmm.
So from my understanding, outside of like Apple, because he's got a huge amount of Apple now, but Apple, you could debate whether that's considered value or growth. Like
It's
it's
in
probably
between.
both. It's in between.
Yeah.
But he's big on, hey, how do I wait for these value companies who do have good financials, who do have good, book value, all that. Wait till those in the stock market perspective decrease in value to then buy and hold out for. I mean, think about it. The man's like 92 years old buying stocks with the anticipation of holding on to it for another 30
I know.
years.
Yeah.
So that's the mindset we need to have. Could you imagine?
He might try to do like the Walt Disney thing.
What Walt Disney thing?
Okay, this is gonna be turned into like a conspiracy podcast.
Oh boy, here we go.
But you don't
I love it.
don't remember his head being the downstairs floor of like Magic Kingdom. You never heard that?
No.
Oh, maybe.
Okay, well, we'll
They
talk
said-
about it later.
They say they
Froze his head.
it. Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Stop it.
Yes, I'm being.
Walt Disney
The
said.
actual
Yes.
guy. Yeah.
Get out of
It's just
here.
like a conspiracy / theory thing that they got,
I believe it.
and he's still functioning, talking. But
Oh, I don't know about that.
Hmm.
I'd like to. I'd like
I
to.
love it.
I'd like to see that first.
Oh man, that's funny.
what if he just came back like 50 years from now?
Hey, maybe he's in the AI universe.
I know that could happen
Good.
too.
Maybe
All right.
maybe he already had a chip put in his head.
Okay, let's get back on track here. But next up on our list, we have Tesla, Ford, GM, and Lucid.
Buy some Ford, everyone.
No.
Why'd you
So-
say that?
I'm a big fan of Ford.
Are you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't
Plus,
go
they're
wrong.
gonna be taking over the. How many trucks do you see just on a daily basis while driving?
Mm-hmm.
Pickup trucks.
People like them.
This is a pickup truck country,
Yeah.
and Ford is looking like they're gonna take over the pickup truck landscape.
I thought they're number one.
Yeah, they are, but I'm talking about with EVs coming out
Got it.
too.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think of that.
Pickup truck EVs, yes, they are.
I don't think so. I'll bet you money.
Who?
How much money?
Who
We
do
got this on
I'll
here.
bet you $5.
Against who?
500.
Who do you think?
Did you hear everybody
Who do
said
you thi-
500?
I just said Ford.
Oh, I
Right.
like
Who do you think
this.
I'm going to bet my money on?
Tesla's not making pickup trucks.
Yes, they are.
About to be?
Yes,
Or
they
I mean,
are.
they already are technically, just not in
Yeah.
the market yet.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying. I agree. I mean, from the average person who's going to buy the Cybertruck compared
Thank you.
to
A Ford pickup truck
Ford
that looks just like the F-150, the
Yeah.
electric.
Yeah. You got a good case.
No, I have an amazing.
At least in our
case.
country, yeah, I agree. I mean,
Okay,
it's-
whatever.
he's
That's all
got
I'm
the
talking
data
about.
backing him so far.
That's all I'm
I
talking
know he
about.
does.
We got to
doesn't.
go. Yeah, he does
No,
for
he doesn't.
F-150s.
Ford's
Yes.
never made electric vehicles.
No. I'm
No,
saying from like historic sales, Ford has it in their
For F-150.
correct.
Yes,
But he's saying
they're
for
making
electric.
it electric.
But from an electric side, so
That was a conversation. Electric pickup
Right.
trucks.
Right. So Tesla makes electric vehicles. Ford just started.
Okay, but Tesla has not made a
they
F-150.
haven't made a.
Right. They don't make F-150s. They make Cybertrucks.
Okay, but
I know what you're saying.
oh my God, as the average person who has a pickup truck, would they rather have a electric F-150 or a Cybertruck?
I think they're going to say they wouldn't want one that's electric.
Okay.
Anyways, the point of this was to
I love
look
it.
at why Tesla stock has gone up so much lately, and Ford and GM had to pay Tesla to use their supercharger network of, I believe, $3 billion. That's why the stock went up. What would you like to add about Lucid?
Oh, I was going to say that they're down, and I think they're moving on to China.
I'm not
They're down,
like huge
okay.
into the EV space. Who owns like is Lucid? Where are they based out of?
I don't know.
I
I
don't
know
know
they're
either.
backed by. They were one of the early investors was a Saudi company.
Yeah.
They had a big stake in it. I don't know if they're I think they're American though.
Yeah, but they came out trying to be like, oh, you see Tesla, but we're gonna be the big competitors.
Yeah.
That's how it first started.
Yeah.
They were super overvalued, things like that.
Like everybody else was.
Yeah.
Because what we talked about earlier, based off of, hey, here's free money, and everybody, again, like you could borrow. Like I'm not a supporter of borrowing on margin in the stock market, but think about it. People were borrowing against themselves ultimately
Yeah.
at basically nothing. Everybody then reinvesting back into it based on the borrowed money.
Yep.
I mean, that's why you saw those insane valuations. Everybody was just making hand over fist.
Yeah.
So again, for those who aren't big into investments, who haven't known before, that's a very scary time to be investing in hand picking.
That was a bad time to get in.
Depending on when you got in, yes. And
Well, no, I don't mean in terms of gain wise. It was a great time to get in money making wise. It was
if
a bad.
you started in like March, March, April of
Yeah.
2020, yes.
Well,
Yeah,
really, even if you waited months after that.
Correct. I mean, it took a while to get back up. Yeah.
Yeah, but March was like
That was like the
June.
That was the bottom,
low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it went up for so long, you could have rode that wave for a while.
Yeah, but then everybody feels it. You always have this sense of like greed of, oh, it's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. And again, not to like keep going back to indexes, but that's one of those things. Then, if you're just if you take it from like a Warren Buffett perspective of I'm going to hold this for at least 30 years, then you can't really go wrong because you just keep adding to your positions.
And see, in August of 2021, that was before things had fallen. That was while we were still going up. And I remember looking at my portfolio, and I barely had any cash. I was bought into everything because everything was going up. So I remember saying, I was like, this would probably be a smart time. I was like, this market is not going to keep doing this for it's going to have to come down something. And that was in August of 2021. And I took out a little bit of money. I barely sold anything. And I remember saying, this is going to fall. I just need to wait and get cash. And then I did it for 2 weeks, and I bought back in. And I kept holding and holding until a couple of months went by, and then
depression.
Then things just
Did you say depression?
Yes.
Then things
Well,
just
not
started.
quite, but yeah.
Things just started falling and falling, and I kept buying like PayPal, and Square and Teladoc, and those companies you think might be good prices, but they weren't, and I lost tons of money.
And that's where you go.
That's where I learned my lesson.
Yep. And that's all you can do is then take the learned lessons and I'll apply it towards future
Next time it
decisions.
happens, yeah.
And again, depending on what you're like, again, for me, especially the older I've gotten now, it's like, okay, I put a larger portion towards the long-term investments, and I have a smaller amount that I kind of handpick some of those questionable, where's it going to be in the next 3 or 5 years. Again, the goal is to have anybody I shouldn't say anybody, but our system does allow for most people to become millionaires
You think
in their
so?
lifetime, 100%. Here's best example is this: if you only invest in $100 a month over 30 years, that's like $130,000 based on an 8.5% return in an index fund, right? So
Very true, but I feel like because we're so this is a very capitalistic country and consumerism type of country. Saving money for the average person just doesn't.
So that's where we have to come in as educators. So even with what you're doing as your stock talk, you guys have an opportunity. Just as I feel like I have an opportunity in what I do professionally, and that's what gives me purpose and fulfillment, you guys can include that and incorporate that into what you're doing as well. Educating people on the fact, hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, because again, it doesn't mean you have to all of a sudden shift away from consumerism, but it's how do you implement processes for your financial?
You put the 10% of your paycheck in the market first, and then you go and buy whatever you want after that.
Pay yourself first.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of people just don't do. I mean,
but now a fraction of those people are going to tell you they can't. They're going to say they cannot afford to do that.
But then you're going to ask them, you'll find out they have a brand new car, and then,
no, I'm talking about for people that are poor. I'm not
define poor.
Meaning they can barely get by.
What does barely get by mean?
That means that means
I'm kind of kidding with those questions, but
I'm saying they're buying basic things like food, a basic car, basic living space with basic utilities, and they feel like they do not have an extra couple $100 a month to put into the market.
I get that.
I think there's a percentage of people out there that are like that.
But I also think, so even with what we're talking about with stocks and how we look at stocks from a small snippet of history and time, and then you're using that data and information to make decisions, we're also not making, we're viewing, maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of conversations I have with people is they're viewing life based on the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But what about our grandparents who came from a time where, I mean, I know my grandfather worked 2 jobs. Most of them did. Like, they were workhorses.
Mm-hmm.
How many of us are willing to work 2 jobs?
None of us.
None of us are.
Yeah.
So how can we say the system's against us when we're not doing what we can to bump ourselves up to that point that's sustainable? So, I mean,
That could be too.
it is like we have to be willing to sacrifice different things, but a lot of us aren't willing to sacrifice. We see what our parents have that took years to accumulate and build, and then we expect ourselves who just entered the workforce to be in the same living standards. Well, guess what? It took them 20, 30 years to get to that point. So we need to be patient. All of us want to get rich quick. So back to the information about how people didn't have access to information back in the day. For better or for worse, we now have access to more information.
And not only that, but it was harder to actually buy stocks back in the day.
You had to pay like $50 just to buy a stock.
And you had to go through somebody
Not
else.
more, whatever it was. Yes.
Yeah.
My point of that is, though, like, even with us now, we have access to more information. So we see all these other people who have all this money
Yeah.
or are billionaires. And so now we feel like, what do we need to do? How do I get there fast enough?
Yeah.
And if I have to work more than 40 hours a week, well, guess what? Like, then it's odds are against me. I can't succeed.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to be okay with the fact that maybe that means we have to do things that, quote unquote, in the social media world isn't very sexy or isn't very attractive.
Yeah.
Find a
That's what I
weekend
think
job.
is a big problem with social media, but not to like.
No, I
change
mean
the
it's
topic to,
still
yeah.
under the same guidelines of like how can we as people in our country, how can we get ourselves and our families long term to a point of success financially?
Yeah. I think building that amount of wealth or that path where it goes down the generations of your family, that
Correct.
makes a big difference. And I'm pretty sure the statistic is like 80% of millionaires inherit money, and that's I think
it's the opposite. I'm pretty sure it was 80% of millionaires
That-
came from
self-made millionaires.
they came from middle class families.
That's what I thought before too, but unless I looked up different statistics, but I don't know.
We have a computer right here.
I know.
Oh yeah, we do.
I know.
Look it up. I don't want to look it up. You look
Okay,
it
I'll
up.
look up. You guys finish.
I mean, I don't know if
finish.
you do it all the time, but I mean, it is.
Okay, watch. 79% of millionaires are self-made.
See?
Right? Okay, right. That's what I used to say too.
But it's literally right here. What do you mean used to say? I'm sure you can find multiple.
I mean,
sources to support this.
I used to say it because I read this.
Okay.
But then I read something else.
What else did you read? I mean, there's always a
There. Look at the next link. Study shows 27% of wealthy Americans are self-made. You see how there's a lot of contradictory things on here?
The
that's
Motley
the internet
Fool.
for you.
88% of millionaires are self-made. That's the next link.
Okay, so I'd say so 2 out of 3. Great. That's.
Let's see what the next one is.
I mean, isn't that what like?
That's
In the scientific side of the world, that's how they gauge what's like true or not based on the people. Like
this
what
says
is majority-
68% is self-made.
Okay, so based on all the skew out of all the data, majority says most are self-made, right?
That's what it's looking like. You found something else?
Well, this said in 1982 it was 40%. 2011 it was 69.
1982?
So
Yeah, it's always going to fluctuate.
maybe it's no, but my point is maybe it's increasing. Maybe now there's more self-made millionaires. In the past, there's been more generational wealth responsible for millionaires.
That makes sense. Yeah.
and things
yeah.
always change. Like the economy is never stagnant. Like the economy always changes all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Next up on our list, let's talk about Meta and Apple headsets. How about that?
No, we can't hear you.
Okay, we have a new guest on the
Yes,
show.
awesome. Unexpected. This is great.
I can't hear him.
Okay,
Okay.
but did you see the? Did any of y'all see the press conference?
I saw a
showcase
a
or whatever it's
small
called?
clip of it. Yeah, of what's his name?
Tim Cook.
Tim Cook.
The
yeah,
great Tim Cook.
What's his
Yeah.
name?
I saw a small clip of it.
Okay, but yeah, Apple showcased a lot of things, but the big thing is real quick. Are you a fan of FaceTime?
Yeah, I am.
This actually
We're
kinda-
all a fan of FaceTime,
Yeah.
especially if you're the grandmother who lives in New York. She's on FaceTime with the baby all the time.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Hey, everybody, I'm Jed. I'm just sitting in and love listening to you guys. Who's your guest?
So I'm Luke Lareau.
Luke, what do you do?
So I'm a mortgage advisor and lender with a company called Fairway.
And where are you out of?
So the office is in Crown Point, and then I live in Munster.
All right.
Yeah,
So
you?
that just was another moment to give you a shameless plug.
Hey, why not? I mean,
So you had to introduce
still-
yourself to me. So you know.
hey, perfect. I'm glad you're here. Do
It's
we have any
still
other
staticky.
guests?
Shut up.
All right, I have never sat with them, and they've invited me a dozen times.
That's right.
And so, we'll have to make an appointment. I didn't know you guys did this early. You've always asked me to come in late on a Sunday, and I'm like, dude, I go to bed at 8 o'clock. So
It's like, well, this is kind of early, yeah, I guess. So.
did you get your degree
Yeah.
in what?
You know it.
Communications.
Yeah.
What about you, Nico?
Yeah, I got mine. Feels like a long time ago.
What was it in?
Marketing, unfortunately.
And you're like marketing everything you could possibly market these
You're marketing
days?
right now, though.
Pretty
Yes.
much, but it doesn't help with getting a job, that's for sure.
Apple.
Most people don't get a job right outside.
Yeah,
the field
you know
anyways.
what?
It takes time.
You got to work in some other. People find it's like water. Eventually you'll find your level.
And it's character
right?
building.
That's
Let's
right.
hope so.
Without it, you have to experience different things to get to the point where you're at.
Exactly. Hey, did you guys talk crypto again today or no?
No.
That's not on the list today.
I'm trying to avoid it. Just
That's
so you know.
banned from all discussion.
Good.
for the
Good. I
rest.
knew that it would be eventually. All right.
funny.
Well, hey, thanks for letting me drop in on you guys. I will extricate myself from the
Well, nice meeting you.
conversation. Nice meeting you. And what's the name of that that mortgage brokerage firm?
It's called Fairway.
Fairway, and you're in Crown Point. What is the exact address?
121 North Main Street.
Oh, you're on Main Street.
Right on the square.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Well, nice meeting you.
Yeah, you too.
The great Jim Delo, everybody. All right, let's go back to FaceTime. Yeah, so cool
FaceTime?
feature on FaceTime. You can now leave voicemail messages. That kind of went viral on the internet, too. We went into-
Voicemail messages.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
How's that going to work?
So, like, you can record a video like, hey, why did you miss my call, you idiot? Yada, 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 yada. Leave it as a voicemail.
Interesting.
Oh, wouldn't
Yeah.
that be the same thing as just taking a video and sending it to them?
It's a little different because now FaceTime is doing it.
Got it. So it's just like
don't
somebody
see the
leaving you a
difference.
voicemail when you
Yeah.
call, but now you're like it's FaceTime call.
Yeah.
And then you just leave a short little snippet, but you can. I get it.
Exactly.
I know what you're saying.
Well, so who cares now? Let's go out to the big thing. Now Apple has unveiled a big VR technology called Apple Vision Pro. Now, Apple Vision Pro looks kind of cool, looks neat, but the big thing was the price. Do we all know what the price is? Take a guess if you don't know what the price is.
Of what?
The new Apple Vision Pro.
Oh, I think I saw it on some articles like 3,500.
Yes. So that's that was kind of loud, but yeah. $3,500. How are we feeling that a new Apple VR technology? This one's kind of weird too, because if you look at some VR devices, like they have different sensors on around, put on the room, different like that, with different games. Yeah, they even have a controller. I think Facebook, the Meta Pro has a controller too. This one, no controller. You actually use it with your fingers, your eyesight. So it looks pretty cool, but $3,500 is very excessive. And I think it's kind of crazy.
That's way too much.
Well, I mean, we talked about this briefly
Yeah, we did.
earlier. I mean, based on a computer, back in the day when a computer was first introduced, it was mainly for businesses. So maybe that's what it gets it into the market, but maybe it's going to be more business use that uses it first.
Yeah, and we also got to say
That's a
this
good
is the
point.
first generation too. Oh, I did say it seems like a dev kit kind of. Like it seems like a
development.
dev kit, but like available to the public too.
Yeah,
Oh.
makes sense.
It does look cool, but
So the question is, how many people are going to be buying that without trying to allocate money to investments to make money off of Apple?
yeah.
And what does it
Would
do?
you rather buy this Apple stock, put $3,500, or buy Apple Pro Vision?
It all
Vision
depends
Pro?
on what you can get out of purchasing it. Can you make $3,500 quickly if you buy it? If you
Yeah.
can, if what you're going to use it for produces income to then reinvest, then absolutely.
Yeah.
If I buy a shovel right now and I don't use it, it's a waste of my money. If I buy
Yeah.
a shovel and start offering to go to people's homes and plant, like whatever it is, then it's worthwhile.
And that seems what the problem, because it feels like, yeah, you could do some cool stuff. I see you can also, like with my MacBook, if I have it on, it can be like a display, like it pops up, so I could use the Vision, the VR for like a MacBook screen, kind of like a Bluetooth type of thing.
Yeah.
What does it do that the Meta one doesn't do?
I'm not sure what the
You know
minimum-
what? We should buy some and come on
compare it
here
on the
and
show.
just do it on the show.
Yeah.
I think we
I
should.
wonder if they'll let us use one. We'll just return it. Let's go to an Apple store. Do they have Meta stores? I don't know how that works. You just buy one online?
You go to the store, pick one up, but they're not available till next year.
Okay. Well, then next
Wait,
year we'll
they're
do
not.
this again.
So they're not out yet.
No,
Oh.
I think they want to give time for developers to make new apps to it. So I could think I'm thinking like March, April of 2024.
Okay.
Huh.
Whatever.
Yeah, I haven't really followed that side of the market too much. I mean, I was just kind of seeing my stock apps, like what's coming out, but I didn't really.
Yeah.
I saw it was coming. I just didn't know when.
Yeah, but it's just kind of weird because like I said with the controllers, but you could use it with like your fingerprint. Like it's like a pinch. Like if you see like a message that pops up on the screen, you can look at it, then pinch it, like go straight to it. So it's kind of like your phone. It's kind
How
of
does
like
it know your fingers is doing that?
it has like a whole bunch of different type
it
of
has
cameras,
sensors?
sensors,
Oh,
all on
That's
type of
crazy.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So okay, that makes sense.
So it seems like a cool idea, but
How
it's
much
kind
is
of
the
the first
Facebook's?
gen, $34.99.
no, Facebook's.
Oh,
So it's
Facebook is 1,000.
So that makes sense
But
for
the
Apple's to be more. Then.
Yeah, but Facebook also has some cheaper ones, like 4, 5,
Right.
6. So
But Facebook's is not doing all that. Facebook doesn't own Messenger and all
No.
that. I mean, well, Facebook owns Messenger, but not like Apple
Messages,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? All that stuff. So Apple already has that ecosystem.
yeah.
They're
And
gonna put all
another
those
weird
apps
thing
in.
too, I saw bringing up FaceTime again. You can actually FaceTime people on the Apple one, and it's weird because like you're obviously gonna see people up on your screen when you have the thing on, talking to people.
Yeah, what
But-
are they gonna see?
They're gonna see like a 3D version of you, kind of
Oh,
like on
really?
Star Wars.
Like a
I know what you're
hologram?
talking
Yeah,
about.
like a
Yeah, yeah,
hologram.
Yeah.
Wow,
That's weird.
That was
pretty
my
weird.
idea.
Too bad you didn't have the funds and the resources.
I said that too.
to do
I
it.
said Apple should do that 2 years ago. My other
Yeah.
idea for Apple is they need to make the next feature of the iPhone offer air conditioning and heat.
What?
Yeah,
Wait, what?
the phone
Like
should
for like for itself or for you?
both. Like the phone should have a
The
built-in.
phone's gonna be like up here to have a battery source to maintain that.
Well,
long
they did a lot of they have a lot of stuff in this little piece, so I'm sure they can.
Jesus.
Once the technology evolves,
Oh my god!
technology moves fast.
Next up, Apple HVAC and air conditioning, whatever.
Built into the phone, so that way your hand can get cool or warm, and if the phone is overheating, built-in AC system.
Yeah, but my other question is, if you're Google, any other company that's competing with Apple, what is on your mind after you see this? Like, do you want to start making your own VR type competitors, things like that?
Maybe.
Because it seems like Apple kind of made like their own new market with this.
Who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
my biggest thing is again is everybody else. Everybody in the market is coming at it from a different angle. Consumers, business. I mean, ultimately we're all consumers, but a business could say, "Hey, can I showcase? Let's say somebody's a home designer, like an interior designer. Can they walk people through?
Yeah,
Like, hey, come over to my studio, and
Mm-hmm.
they could have already digitally set up what their house would look like. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many interesting and cool like 3D renderings
Yeah.
and all these different things. Like, so maybe for these people who are already in tune with this technology or want to stay, because ultimately every business has to find ways to stay a step ahead, right? So just as people, Apple, Microsoft, everybody's in their business trying to stay ahead in the market, you have other people with their own businesses. Maybe it's a realtor, maybe it's a design, an
Yeah,
interior
'cause they
designer,
can use
maybe it's
that-
a landscape, like whatever it is, they could then use that for their business to
Right.
be competitive against other
yep,
people in their field.
yeah.
So then maybe if I am one of those business owners, absolutely, $3,500, I get to write it
That's
off.
worth it. Yeah,
It's worth it. Again, now I'm making income from that because now I get to market this on social media. So
Oh, did y'all see that the stock price fell down like 3% as soon as they revealed the price of
did
it?
it really?
Like it went up a little
Apple?
bit, yes, and it fell right back down as soon as they
Oh, that's
did the
funny.
price.
oh.
Well, I mean,
For a business, it makes sense, but for a personal use sort of thing, I don't see it.
not yet.
I don't
but
see it.
I'm not
Yeah.
like supporting it or against it. I'm indifferent to, because again, from my perspective, and what I do, we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not eager to go put goggles on my face to go
Yeah, I know.
experience anything. But that's me. I can't. It's like what I want as a quote
That's me
unquote
too.
consumer doesn't mean that's what majority people are
Yeah.
thinking. But from my perspective, and I'd rather not do.
I mean,
that.
if it's like Ready Player One, that's one of my.
That's
favorite
what the
movies
thing
too.
looks
that
like.
was
the
cool.
Ready
Yeah,
Player
it was
One.
Yeah.
why I watched that movie. 3 or
Then
4
I'd
times.
be interested in trying it. Like I don't play video games or anything, so I wouldn't do it
But
every
it's still
day.
like regular. You could get an Oculus that
You
can kind
want-
of have that.
No,
Oh.
he wants one of those full tech suits where he feels
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah, they still got to make that. But yeah, the Apple one looks still cool. This is still the first gen.
See, my idea for the hologram thing was
I can't wait for them to slim it down, like how we talked about
Like
earlier.
the dark
Glasses.
Mhm.
If you have like
Oh,
that
yeah.
style, heck yeah, why not?
Yeah, that would be cool.
And then the technology will have sped up, and
And
you'll
then it'd
have-
be like
yeah,
Netflix
pretty sweet.
Classified.
Yeah.
You remember that show?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Remember he had those glasses with the little thing on it, and it had the screen.
Oh yeah, that's kind of like in Spy Kids too. Remember Spy
Yes.
Kids the thing?
Oh yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay,
I like
who
it.
wants to see what's up next on our list?
I don't have a list.
I think it's just Saudi Arabia, right?
Well, I got
Oh,
more. I don't
OPEC?
know about you.
Well, I'll bring up Saudi Arabia real quick.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Bring it up.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but gas is going back up again.
Yeah, it is up. It's like $4 now.
It's
Well,
gonna go
here
up
it is,
more.
yeah.
Really?
Gonna go more.
What, 1 million barrels a day? They said they're going to reduce production
Yes, in
by?
July.
So what are we as a nation doing? That's political. We don't have to talk about that, but yeah.
Well,
Oh yeah, you could bring up a pipeline or whatever. Yeah.
Well, not pipeline, but yeah, there's always things you can do.
hmm
Again, because that's part of inflation,
yeah.
right? So I mean, trucking is, I think the trucking industry is a $1 trillion industry annually. So they utilize oil. Again, like from a business perspective, even with like these goggles that are made, like what they had to justify that cost based on what innovations, development team, logistics, all that goes into it. So even that then influences inflation, influences the price of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, which means then these decisions will influence everybody in our country, because then even from the trucking side alone, the extra money it's going to take for those from the logistics side to get those goods to different parts of our country, particularly, it's going to cost more. Then that price will
Well,
have
they
to be
should-
pushed down to consumers.
They should try using electric then.
What do you mean?
You talking about an electric
Electric
semis?
trucks.
He's just trying to get his Tesla stock up. I see it.
That's all he wants to do.
That would be nice.
That's funny.
Yeah, the worst part.
Uber's doing it
Imagine
too.
how long an electric semi truck has to charge for.
Well, I think so. It's like even back to the VR headset. I think at some point when the technology evolves, it
Yeah.
could, like, if you can buy an electric vehicle and you know the battery at some point's 95% recyclable, and you know the battery lasts for 1,000,000 miles, I think it's a no-brainer.
That definitely.
So I think, but you're also only going to have a portion of consumers who participate in that and purchase it. And what are we researching over here?
We are
sir?
researching how long it takes to charge a electric semi truck.
And
No,
what is
you
it?
typed in Cybertruck. There's a difference between a
Oh, that's a
Cybertruck and
big
a semi
difference, yeah.
truck.
Oh, he's starting to sweat. I see it. I see it. 30 minutes for a fast charge? What do they call that? What do they call it? It's not a fast charge. What do they call that?
Supercharger.
Supercharge. That's it.
Semi can travel up to 500 miles on a single charge.
Only 500 miles?
That's a lot.
Well, it depends if you're in trucking.
In trucking, no, it's
yeah,
not.
that's not a lot. Yeah.
I mean, if you're not doing, again, if you're trying to go from Chicago to Florida, that's a tough time. But
That means you
you're
only
charging like, I think it's like 1,300 miles, 1,400 miles from Chicago to.
Is it?
That's
like
a lot of
Miami.
charging.
So then you'd only stop 2 or 3
Maybe I'm
times.
wrong. Maybe it's not that much, but
Gas is still king around for now.
I guess.
yeah, for now, we'll see what happens. I think it's always going to have so many things utilize oil. So
So
even,
many.
if, even
Yeah.
if our consumer side, I mean, that's consumers on one side of things. What about, okay, so trucking, yes. What about ships? What about aircraft? What military? I'm curious. I wonder how much oil military equipment uses.
Mm-hmm.
And
Is that right? Because
from-
they're going to go to Ford and be all electric.
I don't think so.
That's another thing. Ford is going to have a hand on the U.S. government, too.
I don't think so.
Yes, they are.
We'll see.
I mean, corporate and politics have always been integrated, for better or for worse, for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right? I mean, we see a lot of policies shift because of that.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother conversation.
I feel like we were talking about Saudi Arabians, then you have to go back to Tesla somehow.
Mm.
Well, we talked about oil. We got to electric.
Okay, well, what's next on the list? I don't care anymore.
Next on my list is Walgreens.
Okay, let's talk about Walgreens, the great W.
Walgreens. They
Real
got-
quick, am I the only one that looked at those Washington Nationals hat and thought it was Walgreens?
The what?
The
I know what you're
Nationals.
talking about. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. I have not, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you keep
I
on
see
going.
it now that you said it.
Yeah, look at
I
it.
can visualize it. Yeah.
Keep talking, Nico.
So Walgreens has another lawsuit with the opioid crisis, and this one's with New Mexico for $500 million.
That'll give him $500 million to.
Yeah. This that was, I think the last one was bigger. It was like $1 billion. Man, that is like the
Oh,
same
that's
thing.
the same.
Who came out first? Probably Walgreens.
I think Walgreens. Yeah.
Let's see. When did this company come out?
That's
No, they
funny.
came out like Nationals is a new. It's not a company. It's a sports team.
Right. That's what I meant.
Like the 80s,
He's
90s.
trying to buy it stock.
No. Well, the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, Nationals is a new team.
Really?
They used to be the Expos, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, if they're new, then that doesn't count. Yeah. Well, they stole Walgreens. It's probably they probably have the same CEO or something.
The same
Maybe.
CEO.
That's probably what it is, or probably his cousin or something.
Who knows?
Maybe Walgreens bought them. Who knows?
Yeah, that could be too.
Okay, but Walgreens gave up $500 million. Well, had to pay $500 million.
Lawsuit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're having lots of problems. Not only the opioid crisis, but also that thing with California about the abortion pill. That lost them a bunch of business. They got tons of problems.
I'm curious, what's Walgreens' revenue annually?
I want to say $33 billion, something like
Okay.
that. I can look it up.
I don't know. For some reason, Walgreens seems
Never
like
mind.
a company.
So Walgreens, what year is that for? 2022. So Walgreens had a revenue, which that means it should be after expenses.
No, that's before expenses.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Anyways, 132 billion. So what's after? What's net?
Like barely anything. That's the problem. That's why I sold the stock.
You should do
It's like
net
no more than
profit.
5 billion.
Try putting net profit in. Just put net before. I'm curious.
2022.
Come on, people. 4 billion.
All right. So yeah, so 500 million is
Jesus.
pretty expensive.
That is very expensive.
Does
Yeah.
that sound right? Only about $4 billion?
Their margins are only 2% or something like that.
Oh, I mean, not that that's a small amount, but I just thought it was going to be larger.
$4
That's crazy.
billion dollars.
Hmm.
In 2021, it was $2.5 billion.
Oh, they're going up.
Yeah, but I mean, they got
Yeah, we're fine.
they got bad margins.
Okay,
So are there funds that people can invest in, which gets them access to companies like Walgreens and other things? I mean, obviously, like you can invest in different index funds, which like on a very small scale. But I wonder if there's different funds that.
What do you mean? You mean like the QQQ
Like,
or SPY
yeah.
or something?
But you know what I'm saying? Yeah, but like something even more specific to like this.
Oh, like a pharmaceutical or something, retail?
Yeah,
I don't
sure there
know.
are.
I don't know.
it might be.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. Would you
Maybe.
think that Walgreens is more of a recession-proof company?
I totally would think so. Yes,
Yeah, I think so,
actually,
too.
that leads me to Dollar General. We need to talk about that too. But yeah,
What is with you and Dollar General?
I've never heard of it.
Because-
I mean, I've heard of it. I've never heard you talk about it. So this is the first for me.
because the stock fell big recently. Because we also talk about Target, but Dollar General fell big because they said inflation is high. They're worried consumers are not going to be spending as much money. That doesn't make any sense. If anything, wouldn't they get more business from that?
What do you mean? Of people not spending more money?
Right. It's
Typically
it's
not.
cheapest. It's the cheapest.
No,
get.
that's Dollar Tree. Don't
It's the
confuse
same
the two.
thing. It's the same
That's
thing.
a little different.
Okay, well they're dollar stores. It's cheaper than
$1.25.
Supposed to be, yeah.
Dollar-
Yeah,
dollar
$1.25.
Whatever.
No, I think that it depends on. I mean, there's so many different factors again that influence that.
Like if we're talking about Nordstrom or Target or Home Depot or something different, then that makes sense. But we're talking about like a dollar store, like the
I
cheapest.
don't know. I mean, if you think about like, in terms of inflation, maybe those who shop, I guess in the last 12 years of inflation, 12 months, I mean, those who are lower income have probably been hurt the most
Yeah.
during this because their income isn't keeping up with it.
Right.
They don't probably have many assets, so they don't have stocks or other equities
Right.
or necessarily real estate to combat that.
So if they're not going to the dollar store, where are they going to buy stuff at?
I don't know.
Walmart.
Right.
I don't know.
Walmart or like the discount retailers.
I'm not sure.
Right. So that doesn't make any sense. I don't see what they're talking about.
I can't think of. I feel like it's more Dollar Trees that I see than Dollar General. I can't think of a Dollar General.
They're both
At least
pretty.
around here. I don't know.
They're both
Not-
popular.
I don't know. That might just be because the area that we're in, Dollar Tree's more.
Yeah, I mean, there's Dollar Trees all over the country, but where at in each state and each county and all that. Yeah, I'm not sure. There's always a lot of factors. There's always a lot of gray areas that influence everything. What do
See,
you
it's like five. One is like four Dollar Trees in the span of a mile and a half.
think? That's crazy. Huh. Yeah, I don't know what else they'd be doing.
16,000 stores.
Can I look up Dollar General?
That's for Dollar Tree.
Yeah.
How many locations?
19,000. There's more of them.
Maybe because they have too many stores.
That's good.
I don't know.
Interesting. I don't know what to tell you about that one.
Hopefully it works.
I like Dollar Tree more though.
What's the difference?
I don't know. I like it more. I see it more.
Nothing.
see it
There's
more.
no difference.
No, I like the color green more. That's what I like.
So is it Dollar General black and yellow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait.
Yeah, it's black and yellow.
Huh.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
you're
let's
right.
do a short survey with the three of us. Which color looks more like dominant and better?
Yeah.
Black and yellow or the
Now, there's
green?
also one called Family Dollar.
Okay, never mind. We're not doing that. Family Dollar?
Oh yeah, that's like the
Oh,
red
yeah,
one.
that's the red and orange
Yeah.
one, isn't it?
Something like yeah.
Yeah. So there's also that.
I don't know. I still see more Dollar Trees out in the world. Though.
No,
I
wait,
don't know.
let's see.
Yeah.
No, let's check this. I'm pretty sure if we go to.
So I feel like Dollar Tree is a Midwest. It started in the Midwest. I
have
might
no
be
clue.
wrong though.
There, look. Dollar Tree completed the acquisition of Family Dollar in 2015. They also own Family Dollar.
Oh, so that's another one.
with more than 13,000 stores. Crazy. Now, Target had a problem.
Also, Dollar Tree has the, what was it, 16 plus the 13?
I think so.
So they're a bit bigger company then.
I think so.
Interesting.
Target's problem now is different. Target's first thing they got a couple problems. They got the inflation problem, but then
Oh, yeah. Did you see the news with the LGBT stuff?
LGBT stuff, all their merchandise that was LGBT themed.
It was kids. They had a bunch of
Kids wear?
kids LGBT.
Right. So then what happened was the conservative index funds or the conservative hedge funds, they like all sold billions of the dollar. They all sold off the stock of like billions of dollars, and the stock went from like 160 to 130. It's at like 130 now. So that was the first piece. Then Target said, "Okay, we're gonna take out that merchandise, and now they're gonna lose billions of dollars from that." So I still bought the stock though because I don't care. I know
I'm still gonna buy it.
Target's gonna come back, so I'm not worried.
How you feel about Target?
About Target?
Mhm.
I mean, outside of the political stuff, I would consider another recession-proof stock for the most part. I mean, people need goods. I mean, that's the general stuff. I mean, the everyday things that people need.
But I would think they're less recession-proof than something like a Walmart or some of these other ones, or the
No,
dollar
because
store.
you still need Target because Target you can get food from Target and clothes.
And Walmart.
Well, I mean, think
though.
about it. I mean,
Walmart's
every-
the same way, and it's cheaper.
There's different.
Not that much cheaper though.
Yeah, it is.
You can,
Walmart compared to Target?
yeah.
Walmart's way cheaper.
I don't think it's that
Yes,
cheaper
it
than
is.
Target.
Target does not have that much options, and Target stuff is not.
Target, you can do
always looked
price
at-
matching though, can't you?
I don't know. I've
I
always
don't
looked
know
at Target as more like the upscale to
Yeah.
Walmart.
Right.
Even when you walk in at Walmart, it's like dimmer than it is Target. So I feel
Yeah,
like Target
right.
has for
Their
more
lights
lighting,
are.
too,
They got
yeah.
better lighting.
Like, am I going blind?
No, the bananas are probably twice the cost at Target than they are. Walmart's like things cost like 30 cents there. Target,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you want these bananas? $8.
So there you go. So then add multiple. Add Walmart, Target, add some of the Dollar Generals to your account, and it's kind of recession proof. Again, as long as inflation comes back to like more of a historic
So I
rate,
think it
then,
will.
yeah,
Yeah.
then these companies will be fine.
Well,
Again,
like-
like we went through a very strange period of time.
Very strange. Very.
Well, it's similar to the 70s.
No, there's
This
nothing
is-
COVID. COVID.
This
Well,
is
not
very
COVID,
different.
but I'm saying
You're saying from an inflationary perspective.
economic-wise.
Well, wasn't the 70s also part with whole oil and
Right,
everything
and we're
else?
having problems with that too.
I feel like societies. When I say society, we've always like
Cycles. I
there's
know.
always a cycle. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's always a cycle to everything. But when you had half the country and half the world shut down due to COVID, like
Why do you say
yes,
half the country? Wasn't it all of it?
I'm just throwing a number out there. I mean,
Oh.
if you're considered non-essential, what's a non-essential worker? I don't know how many. What was the population? Like what?
Okay,
what
I
number
get-
of
okay,
people were
yeah, you
considered
got it.
essential versus
You
non-essential?
got a point. Yeah, I thought
That's
it-
funny.
Like the whole country just didn't stop. If it stopped, then you wouldn't have had food to eat.
Okay, you're right. I guess.
Oil wouldn't have been at your gas
Yeah,
station.
you're right. You're right.
You know what I mean?
Healthcare workers were still being
People were
used.
still chugging along, whether they wanted to or not.
But you had to wear a mask.
I don't want to talk about that. Yeah. Good
Okay.
times. But yeah, so I mean, again, that then influences inflation and everything else. I mean, so not to get off topic, but even with like the Federal Reserve has a big lever to influence inflation.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, am I boring you? Huh, Nico?
No,
Just
this is
kidding.
interesting.
No, but like with
It's the rain outside.
with
is what it
productivity,
is.
like that's a huge factor that also influences inflation that people don't always talk about.
Yeah.
So people think, oh, the Federal Reserve can completely handle this. Well, no, because if we're not doing things to support productivity as a nation and as a society in general, globally, well then based on our fiat currency, inflation is going to skyrocket because if we aren't producing goods and services at a scale, again, if we're not supplying those things at a scale to meet with demand, that also causes inflation.
Once we lower demand enough,
But what does that mean?
that means super high interest
Okay,
rates.
but what happens then to standard of living and everything else? Because based on what you talked about earlier, we're a very consumerist
Based,
society.
yeah.
So if you make it difficult to consume, 70% of our economy is consumption based. That's a pretty
Yeah.
large amount. So if you completely hemorrhage that, you're going to have a problem.
You're saying we pretty much wouldn't have an economy, pretty much.
If we weren't consumers, yeah,
Yeah.
dissipate quite significantly overnight.
So you want the demand there.
You need. I mean,
No, we
like,
need it.
Yeah, you need it, and you like the desires again. Like this is where I'm a firm believer that there's a lot of gray areas. So in our society, to consume more means we are happier people. somebody in a different country would be like, I don't need to consume, and I'm still very happy. So that's just where like there's always discrepancies in that. But based on our desire and our definition of increased standard of living, that means our income should be increasing. When our income increases, in our mind, that means we can consume more. So in Americans' eyes, if I can't consume more, that means my standard of living has decreased.
True.
Yeah.
Therefore,
But like in other countries, they still got to buy like food and housing.
I mean, not every country has access to that. But I get what you're saying, yes. And generally, in a general developed nation, yes. 100%. Everybody, yeah, that is
How
the
many
goal.
countries is there where the people don't eat there?
Everybody eats, but I'm saying, but how do you get your food? How we go to a supermarket
Yeah.
and a restaurant, which they have their supply chains and logistics to provide that.
Which is the majority of countries.
I mean, maybe the majority of countries doesn't necessarily mean the majority of people. I mean, I would have to look up the details and this, like the stats on what majority of people are considered, you know.
Nico, you're wrong. He's right.
How am I wrong?
I mean, Americans only make up roughly 3.5% of
Are you saying the majority of the world's population hunts for their own food?
No, I was just joking though. But I'm saying, us Americans, we buy stuff. Like we have to buy something new. This right here is an expense, honestly. Having to buy a $800 plus phone, that's an expense.
Actually, then circling completely back to what we were talking about earlier, then based on why we think we can't get ahead, in our mind, consumption is standard.
We gotta have, yeah.
We have to have. I'm a big believer on, because like most people like, hey, here's my income, here's my expenses, always follow suit. My goal for a while is like, hey, how can my income keep going up and how can I maintain expenses for a while? But a lot of people don't think in those terms. They think, hey, as the more I'm making, the more I spend.
The more I
Yeah.
can buy.
The more I can buy, which means you never get above and you never get ahead because your income is always meeting
Yeah.
or barely maintaining your living standards and desires.
Yeah.
Not to then go back to housing. So housing, like the three biggest expenses are housing, transportation, and food.
Yeah.
So I know you and I had talked before at the restaurant about like Grant Cardone and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously people could say the same thing about me. Oh, you're supporting what you do in your industry. But for those who only rent for their entire lives, how do you ever beat inflation? So let's say this. Let's say your rent always goes up 3% every year, right? Because again, as a business, which landlords, you can determine them as businesses, they need to be ensuring that their income meets or exceeds their expenses, right? So if people are only renting their entire lives, typically you're going to see rent go up, most likely at a minimum, especially in the last few years, at a minimum 3%. Let's say for the average person, their income only goes up 3%. Based on that one of your biggest expenses, if your income is only being maintained based on your expenses, you're not actually getting ahead of the curve.
You're just keeping up with the inflation.
Your standard of living actually does not increase.
Yeah.
So people think, oh, I'm getting a raise this year. Unless it beats out inflation, what you're being increased from a rental perspective, et cetera, your standard of living can be going down
Right.
based on purchasing power.
Yeah.
So
Which I think is the part of the problem the last couple of years with the inflation we've had since COVID was the food, everything got more expensive,
Right.
but I don't think wages
They
went
tried
up.
to, but then that kept on causing, like, companies were trying to combat that to maintain their labor and to maintain their business operations, which obviously that was a huge factor that they were trying to determine, hey, if wage growth keeps happening, this is also what caused that's just one indicator the feds were looking at. If wage growth keeps going up, what else do we have to do to combat inflation?
Right, that's going to hurt. That's going to make inflation higher, right?
Correct.
So the real key is to get the wage growth going up, but keeping like
I think the biggest key is to have people investing in equities and assets so that they can get ahead of inflation. And because inflation happens regardless because of our fiat currency. Right? Like money has an infinite supply based on how our current economic system is set up. The Fed can print as much as they want.
but they don't have to.
But they have. Like it hasn't stopped.
And
So like they got off the gold standard, that was like 1972, whatever. And ever since that, they've determined, hey, we can print money with basically limited repercussions. Well, based on different cycles we've seen, there are repercussions, especially how you do it and what else happens in your economy and society. So because of that, how do we get people who are listening to realize, hey, I need to be investing in assets because if I don't, based on how our current economic structure is and based on the standard increase of what prices do from housing, transportation, and food, if I'm not investing in the assets, how do you get ahead?
the only way is to make more money.
Is to make more money. And if you're not making at least 3% plus every single year, chances are you're not getting ahead.
Which most of the time that's going to mean working more hours versus getting a raise.
But what we just talked about, most people aren't wanting to do that. So how can
Right.
we expect us as a society or our generation to get ahead if we're not willing to do things that we know a system? Again, I think we have a great system, but people need to know how to fully utilize it to get ahead. So like that's why I'm big into like buying a home. If we know that housing is one of your biggest expenses, why would you want to rent for your entire life knowing that every single year it's most likely going to go up? That means every single year you have to then readjust your budget based on what your future expense is going to be on
So
housing.
you think renting is always a bad idea?
It's not always. If you're going to live somewhere for 1 year or 2 years, like why
Yeah.
does it make sense to go through the closing costs and everything else to buy a home? If you plan on staying somewhere for 3+ years, then typically, historically, your appreciation should then exceed what your expenses are to purchase that home.
Mm-hmm.
But then at least compared to renting, if you lock in at a fixed rate, hey, most people move, especially in our generation, we're movers. Like we're like nomadic. We go everywhere. Like we don't like to stay somewhere very
You
long.
told us you've been to Montana, Georgia.
Well, Georgia,
Back
Chicago. Yeah, not Montana. Never been there actually. But no, like seriously, like we all want to like especially in our
Yeah, I want to move.
Well, because of what we see on social media and everything else, like it's our mind, like we're always missing out. So we always like want to keep doing different things.
Yeah.
But so like ignoring that, let's say you decide, hey, I'm going to move somewhere and just live somewhere for 30 years. Because we know inflation keeps going up. Do you really think if somebody bought a house today at $250,000 outside of escrow, which is full of like it's got taxes and insurance, outside of that fluctuates. When you come in at your purchase price of your home, your mortgage on a fixed rate is set at a certain amount. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Outside of your taxes and insurance fluctuating. That means based on the best example is look at the past 30 years of homes. Look what your parents bought their homes for and what they were paying per month compared to what now people are having to buy or rent out for now.
But the
Very
problem
true.
is there's still people who buy at those prices, like you're talking 30 years ago, and they put that amount of money into it, but the house still isn't paid off because of interest.
What do you mean? Like 30 years? Well, I mean, most.
Like they put that let's say they put 150 grand and they bought the house at 150 grand,
Yeah.
and they put that in, but due to interest, 20 years later, they still owe a bunch of money on the house.
I'm a little confused. I mean, yeah, there's always interest when you acquire. I mean, that's how the market works. So but when you're borrowing, there's always interest. Most people get 30-year fixed mortgages. It means it takes, unless you pay additional per month towards your principal, it'll take you the full 30 years to pay down your house.
Are you talking about the taxes or the interest on the house?
I'm saying I think there's people who, even after paying 150, like they owe more in the house than what it's worth.
I mean, if you're in an area, like example, if all of a sudden Munster or wherever everybody lives, tons of people started moving out and I never moved out and the value of my house goes down,
Yeah, right.
well then of course, yeah, I'm going
But
to be
that's
paying more than what the house is worth.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in those extreme cases, absolutely. But if you're in an area that has substantial growth, it's a healthy community, it's a safe community, there's growth, then yeah, it's a pretty safe assumption based off of where you live that there's going to be people requiring housing, therefore the value of my house should increase.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So unless, like, that's a severe case, so unless you're buying in a house and you stay there and you don't move out before, I mean, that'd be like an area being a very nice community that's safe to all of a sudden changing in 5 or 10 years. That just becomes,
Okay, but when you like refinance it, how does that affect it?
I mean, if you refinance it, say people right now are buying a house, it's right around 7% for the interest rates, for the rate. So that means then, in let's say 12 months, rates are 5%, you get to refinance into that new rate.
Yeah.
Which means what you're borrowing, so again, what you're borrowing based on that rate, you're paying more towards interest.
Yeah.
So you want your rate to be lower so that you're paying less towards interest per month. So
the
that
only
will
time-
benefit people.
So the only time you would refinance is if interest rates are lower now than when you bought it.
Typically, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there's obviously always factors of why people might want to refinance or do a cash out refinance if somebody's cash strapped or something like that. Like there's factors
I
that
see.
may cause people to consider it. But if you're looking at it from like a cost savings perspective, there's no point to pay money up front for closing costs to refinance into a higher rate. They're just saying, hey, let me spend more money per month towards.
Yeah.
Doesn't make
I see.
sense.
Yeah.
So, yep, there's a lot of opportunities out there.
What else on the list?
I love it. He's like, get back.
I put that in the last 6 months, the market's up 36%.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
That's a lot. That's huge.
That's
well,
significant.
That's a ton. That's why I don't even see how the market could. One, I think it's going to fall significantly, but I don't see how it could get any higher now. By the end of 6 months from now, I don't see how it could be much higher. I don't see how that's realistic, because 36% is a lot.
Well,
Well, I feel like the tech side went up pretty significantly in the last 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
but value stocks have stayed pretty steady or even declined a little bit.
Yeah, that's like the Dow stocks.
I always felt like, not felt like, but I feel like I always see like it shifts. So in the market, you'll see,
Oh yeah, I
right?
need
So
to-
like a lot of money is going to go towards tech, and in the meantime, you're seeing some of
Yeah.
the value stocks decrease. And when it's overvalued on the tech, they start selling that out, taking their profits, and then people start investing in more value.
Yeah.
Back
So
to
you just gotta,
cycles. It always cycles back and
you
forth.
just got to be on the right side of the
at the
turn.
right time.
Yeah.
Or you just keep investing in both and make money.
That too. That too.
keep a balance.
Keep a balance. Yep. Balance is important. Yep. I like it.
Anything else on the list?
I put
I feel like this was a long episode. I
It
don't know.
was. How long was this?
I don't know.
too
Gotta be at
long.
least an hour and a
I
half.
think
Jeez. You said something about an hour and a half too. That's just funny.
It happened.
my two picks were UPS and Pool Corporation. Those are my two picks.
Pool Corporation. I heard of that.
They're the number one largest supplier to retailers of pool materials. And they do the majority of their business is actually from pool maintenance. It's only like 35% is like the pool products and stuff, but the 60% something is from just maintaining the pool. So it's got a good. I feel like it's a like not everyone has to buy new equipment and stuff for their pool. They might not have to remodel, but they will have to do basic maintenance work. So that's why I think it's a pretty good investment.
Would I rather get that company or buy a pool?
Well, the Pool
That's the
Corporation.
difference between consumerism and being an investor.
Right, exactly.
Invest first and then consume. Or do both,
Yeah, but
if possible.
I don't think I got any stock. Oh, I said Ford, but I don't even know what the price of Ford is
Oh
at.
my God.
It might be on like at a
Do you-
10-year
do you
high.
own-
I'm
do
saying
you-
buy it.
Do you own a share?
No, but I will.
Oh my God. You can't recommend it if you don't buy it.
Okay, I'll buy it right now. Well, I can't do it now. I'll do it
Yeah,
tomorrow.
it's after hours, yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow.
You could put a pre-market order in.
Yeah, that too.
Well, until you own a share, you can recommend it on the next episode. You can't do it now.
I already recommended it.
Doesn't
Well,
count.
no, not recommend. I advise.
Yeah, you educate.
Highly suggest. I like that.
You just provide education, right?
Exactly.
What about you?
What about me?
What's your pick?
I'm adding value right now.
No. What's your stock pick?
I've liked Realty Income.
Okay,
They've been
is
hit
that
for a
ticker
while.
O? Yeah, I've seen that.
And then VIG and SCHD.
What's VIG?
Those are both like value-based index funds.
Okay.
So
My only thing against some of those is they
it takes too long
average.
to go up. Yeah, I know.
Well, they average such smaller returns than like the Nasdaq.
Again, that's where like you diversify a little bit.
I guess.
Keep a balance.
Man, back to the balance. I like it.
I guess.
It depends on your horizon too. So
That's it.
Yeah, it does. Right, it does. But as long as you're, gonna need the money in over 5 years from now, then you might as well do the Nasdaq.
yeah, I mean, look at even people that bought the peak of 2020 before it fell in March or in March, April.
They're up.
They're already
Yeah.
back up.
Yeah.
Outside of maybe the tech side of things, because if you look at the Nasdaq still hasn't completely gotten back to its high.
Well, not to the 2021
That's
high.
my point, though. So depending
Oh,
on
not
where you,
that,
what
no.
depending on what
Right.
stocks you're looking at or what funds. So
Yeah. But it's like the Nasdaq almost did twice the performance of SPY. That's why it's like you might as well SPY Nasdaq.
it's tough. That's why you just keep on adding to your positions.
Keep on adding.
best you can.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I mean, that's what majority of people do, unless you have the time and the resources and the education to be picking. Like for the average person,
You should just be
stock
buying
away as much
index.
as you can.
Yeah.
I think it might be the best way.
What's that?
Might be the best way too.
Yeah, until you start, like, especially if you're first starting, start with that. And then as you start to understand more and how the market works and how it shifts and what influences what sectors, then you can start to really handpick. But until then, it's like, hey, just pick the VOO. It's the standard S&P 500. You have the 500 largest companies in the world based in there. Like, how do you go wrong?
So if I gave you like $1 million right now, how would you split it between real?
Gosh.
How would you split it between real estate and stocks to invest?
Real estate and stocks
to invest like
right now?
If you had to
Yeah.
invest like all the money by the end of this year, what percent would you put into properties and stocks?
It's a great question. I'd probably split it.
50-50?
Yeah, 100%.
That's good.
Because the more I've gotten involved with real estate, I just realize it's I mean, everybody has to live somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I told you, everyone needs a place to stay.
It's, I mean, again, as long as you're invested in a good area that isn't going to be, hopefully, seeing any negative trends based on, again, we talk about good schools, good neighborhood, like safe. Like those are the big things of why people move places. Close to a decent city.
But do you
good
think like
jobs.
those cities where they had all those people leave, like Chicago, San Francisco, New York City, are those going to be good opportunities now? Are people going to move back to those areas?
It's tough. I mean, I can't determine the behaviors of everybody. I mean, yeah, there's obviously factors that can both support and deter people from making those decisions. So some might determine, hey, this is now an opportune time because the values of the properties have decreased. So yeah, let's go ahead and invest.
That's what I think too. And I think because of the boost of online jobs, people would like want to go back to the cities because hey, maybe my job is I don't know.
How does it make any sense?
What do you mean?
They did the opposite.
Usually, if at least from what happened, if they had the mobility to
Work remotely.
work from home, they got out of the expensive cities.
Yeah.
Because usually people will move closer to the cities because it just makes transportation easier, shorter. You know what I'm saying?
That makes sense too.
Yeah. So like when they did have mobility to work from home, then they.
But does that just mean those big cities are going to be ghost towns then from here on
It
out?
depends on the city. I mean, every city's so different. I mean,
One thing I saw Chicago was doing is they took like a big street of office buildings that used to be, and they're making it into an entertainment facility thing now with like
Yeah.
a stages and stuff. So maybe they do more stuff like that.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, look at how there's malls in our country who've had a shift from like the standard malls to, again, like what we talked about earlier. I don't know at what point in this 2-hour conversation,
I know.
but like, the economy's never the same. It's never the same. Everything's
Yeah.
very different. 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, look at the iPhones. I remember I had a little flip phone when I was like 15 from Nokia. And
Now
now, and
it's-
now we have, I mean, this what's
6-year-olds have phones like
what's here in our hands that sits in our pocket when we're walking around or in somebody's purse, like that used to be in a auditorium for a fraction of what the capabilities that this does now. Mm-hmm. But my point of that is like the economy's always shifting and changing. So, yeah. So diversification isn't always a bad thing, especially if you don't know, especially on the tech side. So yes, there's projected like, hey, there's great opportunity for growth, but because it's a quickly changing landscape, what's relevant this year might not be relevant next year. Somebody may have upped them in that same industry, and guess what? They're not worth
Yeah.
a fraction what they're worth. So
All right,
I like it. Good stuff.
that's it. I think it's time to
I
end
think
this
it's a good
conversation.
wrap. I agree.
I think
I
we
feel good
I
with
think we
that
hit
one.
every topic.
Yeah. My head hurts. Just kidding.
We actually didn't talk about crypto. You want to spend another hour on crypto?
Why don't we do another episode on crypto?
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
fine. Let's have a round of applause for episode 50.
Yeah, this is good. It's good. It's good. You guys are
Got
great.
anything else to add?
Only took us 2.5 years to get to this episode.
That's not bad. No, thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Thank you. I'm
I enjoy
about to
these
start crying.
conversations. It's okay. Oh, you know what? That's a good cue for you to say, oh, invest in Kleenex or something. You know?
Yeah.
I need some Kleenex too because my allergies. God.
And
But-
where do you get your allergy medicine from? Walgreens. Look at that. And how do you get there? In your Ford. Full circle.
A lot of people like CVS better.
Who's a lot of people? You talking to your family? Like, where are you getting this data from?
I've taken from
Yourself?
what I've heard from people.
That's a very small amount of data from a very large data pool.
I guess.
I think I
Now
like
when
Walgreens
you
more.
look at the numbers though,
What numbers?
look at CVS
Just playing.
numbers and Walgreens numbers.
Oh, that's funny. By the way, I haven't known this whole time. Which camera are we supposed to be looking at? Okay.
Whichever one.
You don't see us on the TV?
When I look at the TV, I don't remember. I can't see myself. Or when I look at the TV, I can see myself, but then when I look back up at the camera,
Oh, yeah.
it's like, well, which one was it?
Okay, well,
I'm directionally challenged. So,
hey, but at least you're you.
thank you.
That's all that matters.
Yep, thanks. Maybe I'll be invited again. This was fun.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Sweet.
Nico, you got anything else to add? Or can we leave? Can I go home and
Yeah.
watch, I don't know, something? Something.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch All American.
Nice. I like it.
You still were watching that?
Well, yeah, that season 5 just came out.
Good for you. Good for you. All right.
Sweet. Good stuff.
Thank you all for tuning in to episode 50 of Stock Talk with Josh and
Luke.
y'all have a good one.
Thanks. Bye.
Y'all have a good one. What's our slogan?
What's our Logan?
Yeah. To greener days ahead.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
I like that. Nice. I like it.
Bye-bye.
See ya.